How do we name it?
Can we have the jersey here?
What do we have
The
here?
sweater.
This is.
Look at the back first. Before you go to the logo, look at the back.
This is.
It says
Henry.
Paul, your name, 90.
That's
which
not
is
Nick Paul.
Paul Kennedy. 90 is
Paul
the year.
Kennedy.
90 is the symbol, but this is year one.
Yeah.
And that's the emblem for year one.
That
which
was
they
the
wore,
envelope.
wore to the Stanley Cup. But how do you come, the story, you're coming across the bridge, you see lightning, you name it.
Well, here's how we named it the Lightning. Is that what you're talking about?
You name him. And then
We
you
were
tell him
at,
you're going to call it the lightning.
We were at the Benny Lazara's home on Davis Island in July. It was like a cocktail party, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to raise money, and there were other people there that we had to talk to, and this big black cloud.
It was storming, man.
It comes over the bay, and Benny's mom, who was 85, I guess, or somewhere around there at the time, did she have a cane? I can't remember.
She was sitting down, but then the lightning started. In fact, we had Mark Peroni was coming in, and he got diverted to Orlando that night.
Orlando because of the lightning storm. And then she came and we were talking about what we're going to name it. We're going to have a contest and all this other stuff. And she just blurted out, "You got to name this so-and-so team the Lightning."
After the big thunderclap.
She had the idea?
That's what she said, and because it's the lightning capital of North America. And I went, that's it. Because I wanted a name without an S on the end,
Right.
like everybody else had. I wanted something different. I wanted the underarm things that was on that jersey. So when we score a goal, nobody else had that then.
So when you raise your arms, you
Nobody
have
else.
color to it.
You got color
color.
to it. And I wanted the crest to be big enough where you could sign autographs on the crest. And all the players could get on the crest so somebody could put it up.
It says Tampa Bay.
Yes.
Was it to be? Did McEwen say it needs to be Bay? Tom McEwen, the great writer.
He wanted to call it Florida.
I wanted to call it Florida Lightning at the beginning because they get the whole state, right? Just like the Panthers did.
Who changed your mind?
Henry, I think, talked to me about it's Tampa and
It was such a war.
Hubert Meisel, more than anyone, changed my mind.
Sports columnist
Of St.
Power
Pete Times.
of St. Pete Times. Great writer.
Because-
That was after the article, "All Sizzle, No Steak."
Yes, that's what he said to me. I'm all sizzle and no steak. Okay, this man, if you go to St. Pete, he says, and play there, it's got to be called St. Pete. He did not want to bind a whole two. And I didn't realize that was where the arguments used to come from St. Pete and Tampa, is from the sports people. Tom McEwen, on the other hand, said to me, "Phil, in that meeting we had the very first time at Malio's, Tampa Bay. Call it Tampa Bay."
As with the football team.
And we had to bridge the gap. And I tell you, the best thing we ever did was go play 2 years over in the Dome.
In the Dome.
That really, I
Even
think,
though
helped
we weren't
melt
allowed
away.
to.
What did it do?
Well, it melted away the animosity. It cemented a region-wide fan base, which we have a tremendous fan base now. And that was really helped because the animosity and what we had to go through with the rivalry between the two communities was unbelievable. And it really doesn't exist anywhere close to what it did then.
It dissipated because
I think
coming across the bridge.
I think we played a role in it.
Yeah, I think so too, because without a doubt, we were promised that we weren't going to expand till '96. I was told that in a governor's meeting. And I said,
They
fine.
expanded the next year.
That's right. Because Anaheim and Izinga,
Florida.
50 million apiece.
I think it was 100,
And they-
100 million or
It
so.
was $50 million, same as our franchise. They got 50 they got 100 million, but from Anaheim 50 and from Florida 50. And they changed the rules,
Draft rules.
draft rules, so you can get the best goalie. How did we get Pupa? Bobby Clark drafted Pupa, Fitzpatrick, and Van Beesbrook. Three pretty
wonderful-
good
yes.
goalies, boy.
Absolute playoff
And
caliber.
we ended up trading a third-round pick for Pupa to Bobby.
Was a playoff goalie.
Poopa was
Van
unbelievable.
Beesbrook had won the Vezina in New York.
Right.
Well,
And
Tony
he gets him down there.
Tony thought Poopa was great, but
Yeah.
he had a very bad break.
The first time I met him,
I couldn't believe it. I said,
his arm was like, but boy, that didn't stop him.
didn't stop him.
Playing goal, he was terrific.
Dave Andrechuk loves him. Thought he was in Buffalo tremendous.
If he didn't get hurt that series against Philadelphia, what was that? 95?
Well, our first
95,
first playoffs.
95. We would have beat them. Even Clarkey, Bobby Clark would admit that. We would have beat them.
I'll never forget in Philadelphia, he bent over to try and untie his shoelaces. He couldn't do it.
He couldn't move his arm, or he
His
couldn't move
back,
his back.
His back was bad,
sorry.
real bad.
Yeah, I tell you, he was a tough guy, but he couldn't overcome
won
that.
a lot of games in this league. And still, like so many of these guys, lives here.
I kept telling them all when they come here, I said, you're going to like it so much down here, you're going to stay here.
There was one guy who asked to get out because
Yeah,
he
Alexander Semenoff.
his wife was afraid she was going to get eaten by an alligator.
That, and it was too hot.
The
He
Russian.
told me it was too hot.
This is
So I traded him to San
this is a
Jose,
joke,
make him
right?
suffer.
This is a tall tale.
No,
this is not the truth.
I was there.
It's the truth.
He asked Phil to trade him to cold weather.
Yeah.
They lived in Cheval. A lot of the players lived in Cheval.
'Cause
There
they
was
saw
there was a pond
gators.
out front.
Gators.
And she saw gators out there.
You see the gators in
She
the pond.
thought
you
she
can't
was
help
going to
it.
get attacked by an alligator.
I traded a player who was his family was afraid of alligators.
Yeah.
That's the only.
And the heat.
So you traded him to Edmonton.
Actually, I traded him to San Jose first,
then
just
he
to
went
make
to
him
Edmonton.
suffer.
Okay.
And then they traded him. Jack Ferrara traded him to Edmonton because he went over and told Jack the same thing. It's too hot here.
How do you get to the Ice Palace once you're going to leave Expo Hall? You've played a game in there before, an exhibition game in there before, but what are the costs going to be and the realities going to be of skating in there, putting a rink in there, and how are you going to go about
Or
setting
the
it up?
dome?
Yeah,
Well, the chillers
Thunderdome.
and
The Thunderdome.
and putting the ice in. And I remember the pitcher's mound was electronic, so we had to solidify that, right? And
Yeah.
make
Well,
it solid.
Yeah, they put it down, but
Did they still resist you? Remember, you couldn't
No,
get a
not
deal
by
before
then-
with the Carmanos.
By
issue
then,
with Spike.
the one guy was Rick Dodge, who he and
Yeah.
I just didn't get along.
Yeah.
He didn't want any part of us. I think he had a private deal going with the other guys. I hope I'm not saying anything out of turn legally, but
Henry?
you're speculating.
Henry?
But
Cover his microphone.
I will tell you that no, they were all in. They tried to get us. In fact, they called me over for a meeting. They had plans drawn up for a hockey arena to be built next to the dome, and that's
Yeah.
when we were going through all the
where the U-Haul place was.
machinations.
Well, there you go. That's some ambition on their part.
Well, once we won out, then they tried to cooperate and help. And I tell you, they were great when we played 2 years there.
Oh yeah, once we got
that
in,
was a
it
different
was
story then.
Terrific.
But the games were phenomenal. The largest crowd in the history of the league regular season game was that first game with the Panthers. The crowds were electric. Before you get to the playoffs, what's your recollection of the business side and the hockey side of this? These are phenomenal.
Well, the hockey side, as far as playing in the dome, my whole idea was what they did out in the outfield, our marketing people, and I thought it was brilliant what they did in the outfield.
With the Ferris wheels, and
Yeah,
the bars,
because even the
restaurant.
NFL has picked up on that. And I just, we had the room, and the kids were out there. They could take the kids
And
and
the
they'd
players would go
through-
out there and
after the
kick
games
footballs.
and kick footballs and throw baseballs. And
Do
look,
you think it was a different era because we were flying commercial back to that? We were all together. The play-
'96 we finally went. We were the last team in the league to charter. The
There
last
was a
team.
camaraderie about it. The players trying to make it work, and there was a feel-good atmosphere. And your team is getting very competitive.
paying the bills was still tough.
Yeah, there were times on the road when we were COD at hotels,
Oh, really?
And I ended up paying a couple of times. And or the stick bill, I remember a guy named Mark Anderson, who was our CFO, right? And he said to me, he says, Phil, I don't know where to get money. I said, for the sticks? He says, yeah. I said, we can't play unless we have sticks. So wherever you have to steal it from, do it. If you have to take it from that guy over there, take it. We need hockey sticks.
We always made payroll.
He always made payroll. Always.
Barely, but we made it.
We made it. It was not, for example, my brother, I'll never forget, Jocko Kaye was our equipment guy.
Remember Jocko?
And
Be careful.
I'm not gonna. My brother got mad because I told Jocko at the end of the year. He says, "Look, you can sell the equipment." I mean, we weren't paying him diddly. He should have got $50,000 a year back then, and we were paying like 35 or something. So if you made 15,000 selling the equipment at the end of the year, because we all got new stuff, because the deal was made with CCM then that they were getting, and my brother he didn't like it.
I tell you, one organization that really came to our rescue was Sunshine Network.
Yes.
Dave Olmsted, your group, really helped us all the way through.
All the way through.
Dave Olmsted loved you guys. It's the golden era of Florida sports.
Well,
Because in the 90s, there was late 80s. In 1990, there is no NHL. There is no Major League Baseball, right? The NBA is just starting, and Sunshine Network, which becomes Sun Sports and now Bally Sports,
yeah.
right? It's there for it's there from the barnstorming exhibition games. In a partnership, it felt like family to do this.
It was.
And to build it to where it is today.
And
Just like family, too, you have your arguments, but it's family.
but Dave Olmsted was there,
He was
and
terrific.
the fellow you played junior hockey was involved too. I can't remember his name now. You played junior hockey, had a couple brothers.
Oh, and he played
Stanfield,
Jack
Stanfield.
Stanfield.
Right.
Well, that's John McMullen. John McMullen, who owned the New Jersey Devils, right? Lou Lamoriello worked for him. Dr. McMullen owned the television network in Texas and owned the Houston Astros.
I know that. I
And
didn't
that
know.
was the television network that started Sunshine Network. And it was
really?
Dr. McMullen. The connection between this, and I've always wondered if Dr. McMullen had a hand in arranging or assisting in votes to make this fly.
Actually, he
did initially, but
Initially,
it turned out there was one member.
one member of our group that
who-
he hated with a passion.
Really?
We don't need to go into details.
No,
on
I
that.
will not do that, Henry. Although I'm dying to, but I won't.
Oh, we were there.
He's one of those guys you had to walk out of the room backwards on.
Really? So you hired, real quick, John Kelly, came from New York, was the
Yep.
first play-by-play guy.
Play-by-play guy, and
Danny Gare.
John Kelly came to me and he said, "Look, the job in St. Louis is open up, and I can go home." I says, "By all means, John. I mean, go."
After.
We let him, out of his contract, and he went. And
Danny, holy moly,
Danny Gare.
moly. I can hear him screaming as
Danny
Chris
Gare,
Contos
though.
is pumping home goals.
Danny Gare would probably still be here doing the TV.
He told him,
He
Don't-
came to me. He wanted to be coach. I said, "Are you crazy?"
Danny
Gare.
Gare scored on his first shift, and you were on the ice. What do you have, 10 seconds into his
He
first
did.
shift?
Buffalo.
There's
And then he
not-
wanted to coach, and I said, "Well, if you're going to coach, expect to get fired."
my father was in baseball and he hired many managers. And when they were signing the contract, he says, "Congratulations. It's one day closer to the day I have to fire you." Every single manager.
When I
he
got
hired.
the job in New York, Emil Francis called me from Hartford. He was running Hartford Whalers then. He called me. He says, "Congratulations, Phil. Expect to get fired."
Thank you very much, Emil.
Well, that's
cat.
just the way it goes.
On the next episode of Lightning Lore.
Henry, I wanted to punch him so hard. I just wanted to give him about a 6-incher.